Okay.
Okay. My name is Jasmine, and tonight I'm refuting the claim the death penalty does not deter crime in our society. My opponent began with his first secondary claim that murder rates are consistently the same, and his first supporting claim was stated that the death penalty have less of a murder rate than states that do. My opponent used grounds that were outdated, and his information was from 2000 to 2005, but that's no longer true in 2013. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, which serves as an execution database, Michigan, a state without the death penalty, has one of the highest murder rates of 7%, and that's including states with a death penalty and states without the death penalty, which makes his claim invalid. One of his supporting claims was that the South accounts for 80% of U.S. executions and has the highest regional murder rate. This is true, but does not hold validity to support the main claim that the death penalty does not deter crime in our society. For one, the southern region is one of the most populated regions of the 4 in our country. And compared to the northeast region, which has 55 million, the Midwest region, which has 67 million, the southern region has 115 million people in its population. And because it has so many people in its population, because it has the most states, it has 16 states in the southern region. And out of those 16 states, all of them, we have legalized the death penalty, which is why the rates are so high, as opposed to the northeast region, where only 3 out of the 9 states have legalized the death penalty. His second claim was irony in the death penalty, and my opponent's second claim is not even a claim of fact, but a claim of value. And he begins with giving us the definition of retribution and defines it as punishment that is considered to be morally right and fully deserved. He says, by taking the life of another individual is not a rational response to a critical situation. He proceeds to tell us it is deadly, immoral, and a cycle that will be continued if the state doesn't put it to an end. And he says that if the state's allowed to kill people, then why shouldn't we be allowed to kill people? Like, why is it wrong that we kill people? But it's wrong that we kill people because it's illegal, and that's why it's a law. But the punishment of execution fits the crime that was committed. It is reserved for serious matters, and not even every murder is put on death row. Murder is a severe crime, and the punishment, if found guilty, is extremely severe, either life in prison or death row. Another supporting claim my opponent used is that the death penalty is inaccurate because it is not legal in every state, but he failed to give us grounds to support that claim, and the claim had nothing to do with the secondary fact showing irony in the death penalty. So tonight in my speech, I've shown you where my opponent went wrong in giving his facts and how some of it wasn't even valid because of the certain regions and how things are organized in our country.
You got that's that.
All right, Jasmine, the death penalty issue is a pretty well-known one. I think you miss an opportunity on the second point to make some claims of fact that would respond to this point a bit more effectively, but you do have a good standard that we're going to judge that value by, so we'll get to that one in just a second. The first point basically argues that the state-by-state comparison is problematic, and basically you update the information with some new information about a death penalty or a non-death penalty state and its murder rates, so that undermines the argument that the advocate's presenting to some degree. You specifically respond to the regional issue with an explanation, which is a reasonable explanation, but the underpinning of this argument seems to be that there is no deterrent effect from the death penalty, and I didn't really hear you argue anything about that. It's just you're quibbling over statistics, and I'm not the statistics are there to help us make an inference. What is the inference that the advocate is making here, and what's wrong with their conclusion? That's what is missing from this argument. Instead, it just turns into, like I said, challenging the legitimacy of the statistics that are being presented and suggesting that different sets of statistics exist. Okay, but what do those statistics mean? That's something that's been left out of the argument. The second point about irony, I'm not even sure it's a claim as it's presented. You've actually tried to summarize it and suggest that it's a value claim, which I think you are probably correct on that, and that then the argument becomes whether or not retribution is an appropriate punishment. You do present the moral argument on that issue, and that is that punishments generally fit the crime. You do point out that the advocate is making this comparison that says, look, we're punishing them for doing something by doing the same thing to them. That's inconsistent. Well, the truth of the matter is all punishment is imposed by the state, not by individuals, and you have a set of rules that you're operating under, and you make that argument, but it needs to be a little bit more forcefully stated. There's a reason why the punishment fits the crime. The larger the crime, the greater the punishment, and I think you need to make the argument that, in fact, well, you do kind of make the argument that suggests that, look, not everybody who murders gets execution as a punishment. It's reserved for people who've committed particularly egregious crimes. It's rare that somebody is executed because they committed a simple murder. Usually, in fact, in most states, you have to have committed a series of crimes in order to get to it. Murder in the commission of another felony, for instance, robbery, rape, assault, kidnapping, any of those sorts of things would fit into that category. Or multiple claims of murder would be a justification for this. So it's rarely carried out. So that should be another one of those things that suggests that it's really, when it comes to a value issue, that as a standard, we're extremely careful with using this as a punishment. And so it's unlikely that anybody's going to learn the wrong thing from this. They're going to learn that, in fact, people who commit the most egregious crimes get the greatest punishments. And I'm not sure why that's a hard argument to make, but it seems like it's a little bit of a stretch. I thought you did, like I said, an okay job presenting a couple of claims on that point. I think you could be a little bit more forceful, and there's not much evidence supporting those points either. All right, thank you.